Hey everybody, this is another Lost Omen. I stream Pathfinder every Monday night with a group of friends on Twitch for 2 to 3 hours, and I've noticed a lot of people watching or getting more into Pathfinder these days, and thought that maybe some people could benefit for some beginner builds. I'm not trying to do anything crazy outrageous. This isn't going to be super optimized for people who are veterans of the system, at least not yet. Um, I am mostly focused on people who are looking at Pathfinder Second Edition for the first time and or first few times. They're leveling their characters up maybe to about 6 or so, and they're like, well, what does this do? I don't really know where to start. Where should I begin? So that's kind of how we're going to do it. We're going to keep it a little slow. Each one of these videos, I'm going to cover different classes, hopefully each time, maybe some revisits. Um, but I feel like people can get a good, reasonable base for at least the first few levels as they learn to kind of build their characters. That being said, today we're going to start with a fighter, um, as I think it might have been the first D&D class that I ever played. I feel like it's a good stepping stone for most new players, and especially in Pathfinder Second Edition, where they are pretty reasonably powered. Some might even say overpowered, but not me. I don't say that. Um, but getting started, the big deal about fighters is they get higher proficiencies with weapons than anyone else. Not only that, but they are built more so with their feats than with class abilities or subclass abilities. Um, so you can really customize fighters in Pathfinder Second Edition, honestly, uh, to a great extent. You can play sword and board. You can play dual wield. You can play two-handed fighter. Um, you can play ranged fighter. Your fighter can have combat tricks. There's tons and tons of things that they can do. We're gonna keep this one kind of simple. We're gonna build a great weapon fighter. A lot of people love it in D&D. I happen to like it in Pathfinder as well. And I think there's some pretty easy comparisons that a lot of people can make. So we're going to start there. Pathfinder rules say to start with your ancestry, and then your background, and then your class. Me personally, I always start with my class first. That's the first thing that I do, because realistically, that's what I'm going to play, right? So when I'm building, so I use Foundry to do all of my Pathfinder games. And I will click on a class, drag my class over, and drop it in the class box. And that's going to populate it. When we do that, when we pick fighter, it gives us 10 starting HP, as well as our beginner proficiencies, expert in fortitude saves, expert in reflex, trained in will, expert in perception. It's also going to give us our weapon proficiency, expert in simple and martials, as well as trained in all armors up to heavy. Okay, so we'll get that. The next thing we'll do, click ancestry. Honestly, most of the time I find people have an easier time role playing humans. So that's what we're going to start with this time. For our heritage, there's a few things you can do here. There's a lot that you can do, uh, but we'll keep this one kind of simple. The fighter I'm building today is kind of a mercenary type fighter, uh, sword for hire, if you will. So he's a little worldly. So we're going to give him an extra skill proficiency by taking the skilled heritage. Your heritages are tied in with your ancestries. So what heritage you pick can be decided upon by the ancestry. And then from there, we pick a background. We're going to kind of go generic again with warrior today, as it's super easy for people to pick out. And what warrior gives us, it's going to give us some ability boosts. It's going to give us the proficiency in intimidation, warfare lore, and a skill feat. And we'll get into that more once we get into the actual feat portion of it. So we have our beginner options picked out, right? Down here, now we're going to adjust our ability scores. So to do that, we click this little edit button and open up our ability scores in Foundry here. And you can see where you get every increase. So for human, we get 2 boosts. As a two-handed fighter, I'm going to put that in strength. And I believe I am going to put that in charisma. You'll see why a little bit later. For our warrior background, again, strength. And this one is going to be con. Our key fighting, or our key attribute, which comes from our class, we're going to choose strength. Fighters can choose either dex or strength. We're going to choose strength. And then we get 4 boosts for level 1 to any of our abilities. So that's going to be strength, 1 to dexterity. You can leave this out, and in fact, maybe with this build we'll leave this one out, and we'll do Constitution to 14, our Wisdom to 10, or to 12, and our Charisma to 14. So with stats done, that's super easy and finished. Then we can move on to our proficiencies. So fighters come trained in either acrobatics or athletics. We're going to pick athletics since we're focused on strength, and we can do some combat maneuvers with that. And then they are trained in 3 plus their intelligence. Since our intelligence mod is 0, then we just get the base 3. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I think for this character, the way I see him, diplomacy, because he likes, he's taking jobs. He has to be able to talk. Deception, because sometimes he wants to make the job seem a little bit harder than what it actually is, so he can get a little bit of a better pay cut or pay raise. Stealth, because it's my personal belief that every single adventurer should be trained in stealth. You don't have to. 100% you do not. And then for our extra one, we are going to take society. So that takes care of our skills. So that comes from the skilled heritage. The society does. That's all done. The only other thing that we will add is we have to manually add in here warfare lore and click that to trained. So from there, we will move on to feats. For feats, the first thing we'll talk about are class features that we get at level 1. First off, we get attack of opportunity. Works very similar to other editions of games. Most people know kind of how it works, but it is a reaction that you can take in response to a creature using a manipulate action or a move action, making a ranged attack, or leaving a square during a move action that it's using. So it allows us to attack them for various things outside of our turn. We gain shield block, which is a special reaction that we can take, a special reaction that we can take if we have our shield raised to mitigate some damage that we take when we get hit. And then outside of that, we have a choice of an Ancestry feat as well as a class feat. For our Ancestry feat, we are going to take Natural Ambition. Natural Ambition is very similar to Variant Human in D&D, allowing us to take an extra starting class feat. So for this, we're going to take Power Attack. Take Power Attack, put that there. Power Attack is a 2-action activity with the Flourish trait. You can only take 1 Flourish trait on your turn, or 1 Flourish action on your turn, a round. And then what it does is for 2 actions, we make a melee strike. And if the strike hits, we deal an extra die of weapon damage. This scales at 10th level and again at 18th level, giving us additional extra dice. I'm not saying it's the best feat. but it is an easily recognizable feat that most people know when it comes to making a two-handed fighter. And there are niche cases, like there are specific cases where power attacking could be better for you in a turn than just attacking twice. Outside of that, for our class feat, we are going to take Sudden Charge. Sudden Charge, again, is a 2-action activity, this time with the Flourish trait and with the Open trait, meaning it has to be taken at the beginning of our turn, which allows us to stride twice. And then if we end our movement within melee reach of at least one enemy, then we can make a melee strike against that enemy. You can also, if you ever pick up other types of movement, you can use Sudden Charge with that other movement as well. And then the last thing that we see here, we talked about it briefly before, but from our background, we get the Intimidating Glare skill feat. With it, you can demoralize someone with a glare, so basically visually, instead of using words, which comes into play against creatures that can't understand your words. Now they just have to see you to be able to be intimidated by you. So from there, we would pick our starting equipment. And in Pathfinder, you start with 15 gold. So you have 15 gold to spend at first level to pick your equipment. So the first thing we would pick is a greatsword. Right. And put that in our hands. And then the second thing we would pick is some armor, right? So we unselect the weapon tab, select the armor tab, and we can search for, let's say, a breastplate. Go ahead and get our breastplate. We'll wear that as armor, and that raises our AC to 17. Not the highest that you could have right now, but it's reasonable. It also would not hurt in the case of us needing to be extra defensive to bring a one-handed weapon and shield. So for that, since we're kind of focusing on swords, we'll take a long sword. And then we will also take a shield. We will take a steel shield. So now if we don't want to use the greatsword, we can use our long sword and steel shield and still be pretty effective while being a little bit, sacrifice some offense for defense. And then the other thing that's great about Foundry is if we select kit here, to get us started, since it's our first character, we'll grab a class kit, which is the fighter class kit, and we'll throw that on. We'll delete the hide armor because we don't need that, and then we'll keep the dagger because maybe we'll find a use for it. So with that, we spent about 15 gold. Have some rations, flint and steel, all kinds of little roleplay type stuff. And then once our equipment is done, we can feel pretty confident, move over and raise up to level 2. So at level 2, we're going to get a skill feat as well as a class feat. So for this, we will take, I think we're going to have to take Intimidating Strike. We're big, we're powerful, and when we hit people, we want them to be scared. So Intimidating Strike, again, right? It is a 2-action activity, but this is really neat. It allows us, we make a melee strike. If we hit and deal damage, then we give them the Frightened 1 condition. The Frightened condition subtracts a number, it imposes a status penalty equal to its value to all of their checks and DCs. So if they're Frightened 1, they take a -1 to all checks and DCs, including AC. If they're Frightened 2, then a -2. Frightened 3, you get the idea. But this is really interesting because taking Intimidating Strike allows us to intimidate someone, to give them the Frightened condition based off of our attack and not off of our intimidation roll. And as you can see, we roll currently at 2nd level. We have a +6 to intimidate, but our strike is +11. So you could see the benefits there. A lot of times that'll be our best chance of imposing the condition. Good, nice to know that Frighten not only helps us, but helps our allies as well. So with that, we're being a good member of the team. So moving on to our skill feat for second level, we know that we want our character to focus on athletics. So if I come to skills and select the athletics, then this shows me all of the athletics skill feats that I could take. And then I can find powerful leap right here, and I can just drag that over onto my character. So powerful leap allows us, when we leap, we can jump 5 feet up with a vertical leap, and we increase the distance you can jump horizontally by 5 feet. So that allows us to jump higher and further. Eventually, we're going to be jumping around the battlefield over our enemies and be pretty mobile. From there, we move on to level 3. And at level 3, for a class feature, we gain Bravery. Bravery increases our proficiency rank in will saves to expert. And when we roll a success at a will save against a fear effect, we get a critical success instead. In addition, anytime we gain the frighten condition, we reduce its value by 1. So fighters are very good against fear and demoralize effects. We also get to select a general feat at this level. There are a massive amount of general feats, or feats that you can take in place of a general feat. Some skill feats are general feats. There's a whole big list of general feats just by themselves. What we're going to do, because I like to be mobile, I'm going to take Fleet. Fleet is a general feat that allows us to, it increases our speed by 5 feet. So now we went from having a 25 foot speed to a 30 foot speed. So it's really nice. So back to our feats here. We're good to go. The other thing we get at this level is a skill increase. So we can raise one of these. We are going to go ahead and raise our intimidation up to expert. That gives us a +9, equaling our athletics. So on the off chance that we can't get to someone but still need to intimidate them for our team, we can make a ranged check with our intimidate skill, and that will still be able to contribute in the encounter. Moving to level 4, we get another selection of a feat, of a class feat. So for that, for our 4th level class feat, I'm going to take Knockdown. Knockdown is, again, a 2-action activity. And with the Flourish trait, remember you can only use 1 Flourish on a turn. With it, you can make an attack to knock a foe off balance, then follow up immediately to knock them down. So you make a melee strike. If it hits and deals damage, then you can attempt an athletics check to trip the creature that we hit. If we're wielding a 2-handed weapon, which we are, you can ignore the trips requirement that you have free hand free. So even if we're wielding our greatsword, we attack them and we can immediately knock them down as well, or make that trip attempt to try to knock them down. Both attacks count toward our multiple attack penalty, but the penalty doesn't increase until after we've made both of them. So we get to make them at full effect, and then after we make them, then we would be at the -10 version of the map. So, and then we get another skill feat. For this skill feat, we're going to take Intimidating Prowess. It requires us to be an expert in intimidation, which we are, and have a strength of at least 16, which we do. If we match both of those. So in situations where we could physically menace the target, we gain a +1 circumstance bonus to our intimidation check. And we ignore the penalty for not sharing a language with them. So once our strength score increases to 20 and we become a master in intimidation, the bonus increases to +2. Very nice. So that's it for 4th level. Moving on to 5th level, we get to select a weapon group for fighter weapon mastery. We're going to pick swords for that. Fighter weapon mastery gives us master proficiency with the simple weapons, martial weapons, and unarmed attacks in that particular group, and then expert with the advanced weapons. So we'll have master proficiency now with our greatsword as well as our longsword. And then the other thing we get to select at this level is another ancestry feat. For this, I would like to take Clever Improviser. Clever Improviser, you gain the Untrained Improvisation general feat. In addition, we can attempt skill actions that normally require us to be trained, even if we're untrained. So that's really nice. It gives us a little bit more versatility, again, going to that worldly type character. And then the other thing, so Untrained Improvisation says that our proficiency bonus to untrained skill checks is equal to half our level instead of 0. And if we're 7th level or higher, the bonus increases to our full level instead. So the other thing is we get another proficiency increase. That increase, we're going to put into our athletics, becoming expert in that. And then with that, we're going to get to the final level of this for beginners. For our 6th level class feat, I think that it really has to be this particular character, Shatter Defenses. Shatter Defenses works really well against frightened enemies, which we're going to be trying to do, as well as probably some of our allies as well. So Shatter Defenses is a 1-action attack with the press trait. So the press trait has to be subject to a map. So in order to use it, you have to have either the -5 or the -10 map to be able to use it. So you would attack once and then you shatter defenses. The other thing that you could do, another combo that you could do, you could intimidating a strike and then immediately shatter defenses. You make a melee strike against a frightened creature. If you hit and deal damage, they also become flat-footed until its frightened condition ends. If they were already flat-footed to you when you damage them with it, it can't reduce its value below 1 until the start of your next turn. So it's really good for keeping people frightened, as well as applying the flat-footed condition to help your party better damage them, because it lowers their AC by 2. Or, yeah, flat-footed lowers their AC by 2, so it helps everyone else in your party. And then for our final skill feat here, we're going to take Quick Jump. Quick Jump allows us to do a high jump or long jump as a single action instead of 2 actions. And means that we don't have to do the initial stride before jumping. So now, at this level, if we were on one side of a medium-sized creature and wanted to jump over them to the other side, we could do that for an action with no roll required. So that's it. That is our Greatsword Fighter mercenary, built out for you guys to try out in your first Pathfinder game and see how you like it. Like I said before, there's tons of ways to build this character. There's a ton of ways to build a fighter. I'm sure that you guys have plenty of other recommendations, and I mean, I'd like to see them. So if you wouldn't mind, drop it down in the comments below. Let me know beginner builds that you like, videos that I can make on them, or anything else that I could do better in the video itself. But yeah, until the next time, you guys take care, and I hope to see you again.